Yo, yo. So after a few requests, I am gonna do a breakdown on my track Digitise, which came out on Locus. Locus was a big goal of mine this year. Really happy to have ticked that one off the old bucket list. Enzo, Fuse, and Locus have been a massive inspiration since I first found them a good few years ago now. So yeah, to land that on there, I have so much support from Enzo, not just with the EP, but a lot of my other tunes as well has been quite frankly fucking amazing. So yeah, with that EP, it's a five tracker. I've really tried to push a slightly different sound, just show a bit of versatility in my music. I think the lead track, Digitize, is probably um, it's still kind of a typical sound you'd hear from me, but I guess with a little bit of a change up. I think quite a few of the tracks are quite straight. You usually hear quite a lot of swing in my tracks. But yeah, I think this is the most kind of like typical Danny Snowden track out of the EP. The rest of them are a little bit deeper, a little bit more underground, a bit darker in areas. So yeah, just showing some range really. So yeah, let's get into it. If you haven't heard it, I'll just play kind of like the second half of this main break, and then we'll get into sort of dissecting each element. Cool. So let's just start with the low end as usual. It's just really simply a kick from a pack, not even sure which pack. But yeah, 909 sounding. I live and swear by the 909 to be honest. I think it's just an absolute foundation for me that I always like to start with. Always like my tracks quite punchy, quite driving, even the deeper ones. So yeah, 909 is pretty much spot on for that. So yeah, just a bog standard 909 kick, a little bit of processing, got the drum bus, low cut, a transient shaper, just giving it a little bit more attack and just tightening it up a tiny bit with the sustain at -7. And then one more EQ just take out, because I think around 200 with a 909, depending on the pitch of the kick, it can be pretty prominent. So just taking that out, that real like kind of boxy, just make it feel a bit more well-rounded. Another one that just seemed to be peaking for a little bit. Subtle stuff, but does make a difference to the mix. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much it. Nothing on the group, I don't think. No, I think this might have been a layer, or maybe just another kick which I just didn't delete. Didn't delete, which I'm not using at all. So it is simply just that. Cool. Then we got the bass line, which is a 303 layered with a sub. So let's have a look at the melody. Very, very simple. It's built up of 3 notes essentially, with a little bit of variation at the end. So little kind of glide there. So when you overhang the notes with a 303, when their legato is on any synth actually, it will glide them as opposed to triggering them. Yeah, can be great, can be annoying, depends on what you're sort of making. I felt like the 303 didn't have enough kind of weight in that low end, so I just ended up carving it out a bit and just layering it with a sine wave essentially. But yeah, back to the 303. Processing wise, because it ended up being a bit of a mid layer, I've obviously carved out the low end. Still using the drum bus ever so slightly, but it's on like not even 10%, so it's not doing a great deal. I've got the multi-pass, probably was just flicking through the presets. Can't remember if I've changed much. There's a star next to it, which makes me think I have a little bit, but yeah, this is a sick little plugin. It's sort of like a little bit like Tantra, but yeah, it just kind of brings all the Killer Hearts plugins together, and you can get some wicked presets. You can kind of go crazy with it, but equally just polish some sounds as well. So yeah, CLA, my beloved CLA, is on there too. Bit of width, a little bit of character, gentle bit of delay and reverb of, you know, the faders right at the bottom. It doesn't mean it's off, it just means it's very low. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. For whatever reason, I've put another EQ in there. Don't know whether that's actually doing a great deal. Maybe there was a bit of low end pushing through the multi-pass or the bit crusher that I've got also, which I've missed, sorry. And then yeah, just the kickstart. So if we were to group all of these together and then just hear what it sounds like with it on and without it on. Obviously a dramatic volume change. Really brings it into the mix, obviously. And then yeah, as I say, just that sub, just have enough weight there. Sound. Right, that is the low end done. Drums are somewhat simple, I think. Looks like there's no kind of actual top loops in there, it's just all MIDI. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to keep the drums fairly simple. There's quite a lot going on in the synth areas, so yeah, that's basically it. Although there's not any audio, I still use top loops all the time just to dissect certain sounds I like from a loop, or just maybe the rhythm's too busy, I want to just simplify it. So the first layer is this nice 909 808 kind of feel. Then again, I tend to not really do much processing on my drums individually. I'll just carve out any unwanted frequencies, and that's kind of it really. I think this drum bus is just on every MIDI channel on my old project, so yeah, you can probably just, that doesn't even need to be on there really. Marginal difference. So yeah, that's that. Second one, another just top loop, but I just wanted to take the very, very simple open hat and clap from. And then the next one. The beauty of layering is you can sometimes, if you're careful with it, you can kind of get like sort of fresh snares. Like there's 3 snares and claps all hitting at the same time with that little channel 13, the sort of perk hit. You kind of get like a different texture or a different kind of sound altogether. The only issue when you come into sort of layering is obviously the you know, if you go too heavy, you might get too much attack from it, or you might find that it's too busy and the frequencies kind of clashing or phasing, stuff like that. So be careful. Less is often always going to sort of be better for your mix. But yeah, the old saying, less is more. I think all the time in music is probably what comes to fruition in terms of just how good it can sound and how clean you get your mixes. Cool. That's it. I mean, the grouping is kind of all over the place. It says claps and snare, but that's just, you know, sort of drums really. Then we got the TR-808. Probably started with this channel to get a bit of a groove going. And what else have we got? Just a bit of groove with these. Again, just sort of perky snare thing, just to add a bit of groove. Then we've got the open hi-hat. And then there's a 909 closed hat in there, which sounds nice. I think I'll probably roll with that and then just use a few of the other perky sounds in there. But again, just sort of making my own rhythm from it. And then that's quite nice that then with it all together. Quite simple really, like there's nothing rhythmically going on there that's that mental. Still a fair few layers, but yeah, I just don't think you need to. You listen to people like Coulter, Stussy, Enzo. They all of their drums are always pretty stripped back, really. It's just finding the right sounds and getting clean sounding, high quality samples that go well together with some sort of fairly simple rhythms. You normally get, and same with like Baker as well. You normally get, a nice groove that's punchy enough, full enough to that, and it just leaves more space for other elements to come in. If you've got ridiculously busy drums, the track, when you add synths and hooks and vocals and bass lines and stuff like that, just sounds too busy. Sounds less sort of mature as well, in my opinion. So I'm always striving to kind of make the fullest drum groove with as little as possible going forward. I have been trying to do that for the last few months, well, probably closer to a year now. I just think it sounds cleaner, sounds more professional. And yeah, so yeah, just have that in mind when you next sit down to make a tune. Just try and make that, which is, I suppose, an obvious thing to say, but try and make the fullest kind of drum groove you can with as little layers as possible. Just maybe start with 5 or 6 layers at most in MIDI, one shots, make some rhythm with them, and then if need be, fill it out with a very quiet top loop or drum loop underneath. And you'd be surprised when you get a bass line and a hook and maybe a kind of counter melody or a harmonic synth with that, with a vocal, how rich and how full the track already sounds. Cool. So that is the drums. I'll then process the drums. I think I've been through this process. I haven't really changed it since the video I done probably about a year ago now, but I then process my drums all together using a kind of my own little send and return thing. So this is what I should do is label this dry. That's the dry channel, and then with the reverb, it's obviously the wet channel. The dry has the OTT, which is like I don't know what it's. I think again I've spoken about this before. I'm not actually sure what it stands for, but my only guess is over the top OTT, because it's like a multi-band compressor which really, really heavily compresses it. I always dial it back and get the amount kind of in between 0 to whatever. It's case by case essentially. Sometimes, a lot of the time, I have my time quite high actually, like more in the sort of 8 to 900, so it's super punchy. I think the further left you go, the more kind of squashed and less tight and punchy it sounds. But again, just depends on the sort of style of track you've got. If you've got like super minimal, row minimal sort of sound, and all the hits and stuff are really, really short and choppy, kind of going with the time, going to the left might be a better shout, just to give them a little bit more body and sustain to them almost. So yeah, these are the kind of rough settings I use. Just turning the low end down. You can obviously tweak this as well, which will obviously depend on how much compression is kind of being used, which can be great for different frequency bands depending on what needs more presence in the mix. But yeah, I tend to kind of just normally play around with these two parameters here and get it kind of spot on. And that's it. So yeah, then we've got the little radiator just for a little bit of overdrive, and then just tightening the drums up a little bit. Sometimes, again, this will be a case by case basis per track. Sometimes I'll tighten it up a bit, more attack sometimes needed, sometimes less attack. And if you've got 50,000 drum layers, you might actually want to soften it a little bit, because you've got loads and loads of claps hitting at the same time, loads of hi hats hitting at the same time. Might need a bit of tweaking. And then a final EQ just to carve out any sort of low end. I mean, that might be a bit extreme, but yes, sort of anywhere between sort of 60 to 150 probably should be sweet. And for some reason I've dipped here, which probably, yeah, maybe just a little bit harsh coming through around the sort of 10k mark, but yeah, fairly subtle stuff. What I also like to do with my drums, with my main open hi-hat, I put the CLA on it just so it sits a little bit wider than the rest of the drums, because obviously there's not much processing on any of the other layers. So I just put the CLA on there, using the slap delay quite low and the reverb super low. Just gives it a bit of width, and as I say, just makes it kind of sit above the rest of the drums and peek out a little bit nicer. And sometimes I do that with the claps as well. If there's more than one layer, I'll put it on one of the layers and then leave the other one super central and kind of unprocessed. But yeah, as I say, the actual the process on each of my things is pretty minimal. It's just corrective EQing the drum bus here is actually doing nothing, but sometimes it might need it. And then if there's a certain drum sound that I want to bring forward or sit above and stand out a little bit more in the drum mix, then I might use a CLA just to get it sounded a bit wide. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. So that is the drum sorted. Now it's the synth. So we'll just go down in kind of order of where they are on the page. This is like a sort of hypnotic synth that I've just added in the breakdown. Just literally a preset from the System 100 Psytrance. And then what I do is automate the release as the breakdown progresses. So I like to do that to build tension. Cool. That's literally it. I mean, again, just a bit of corrective EQing, drum bus basically doing nothing again. It's just automatically on every MIDI channel I add, and it was at 10%. Again, probably could take it off. CLA, just nothing added to that, just as it is the default patch, and then just a little bit of a side chain just to kind of get it to pump with the track. Obviously, not really sharing any frequencies in the low end, but I still sometimes like that pump to happen, that dip. Just so you could get that emphasis on the kind of drivingness of the track. Cool. Then the next element is just from Analog. Probably built this myself. It's just literally a saw wave actually, so I haven't really done anything crazy, but saw wave using the vibrato and the unison just to get it sounding a bit wobbly and a bit wider. And then what have we got on the each time it's triggers it opens up or closes. So cool. No EQing, drum bus is doing nothing again. But yeah, I've got a if you use Tantra, you will definitely know this one. It's like the second or third preset, or maybe even the first. I can't remember. But what I've done is just have the mix at about 80%. Sometimes I do it lower because I want that like rhythmic texture that it can kind of give, but I don't want it to completely dictate the whole signal of the sound. So yeah, I might just dial this into taste. Again, the old trusty CLA, as it is, normally does the trick. What have we got on the EQ? Just it's quite sparkly. I think probably where the Tantra's kicking in, maybe with some bit crusher or whatever, is targeting some high frequencies. As you can see, they're super high. So just dropping the problem resonance frequencies, and then again just a bit of kickstart just to keep it pumping. That's that. Then we've got the, what even is this? I can't remember. Oh yeah, that kind of sound that comes in and accompanies the bass line. So it's just sort of a mid-range synth. So yeah, so here again playing around with the, I think this looks like it's close to the default patch. Two waveforms, two oscillators in use, both saw waves. Again, using the vibrato and the unison just to get that kind of wobbly width. But yeah, not crazy amounts going on. What I am doing though is using a bandpass filter and kind of moving it as each note is triggered, so it gives it a different tone almost, because you really target a certain frequency. And then again, just using the default patch of the CLA. But that is it. Just a nice kind of texture. That's pretty much it. Cool. Then if we go to the main break, this is where that pad comes in. It's just from Juno 106 from the Roland Cloud. So what preset it is now. Just pad, F pad. Essentially just filtering it in. Again, nothing crazy, and then filter it back out near the end. A lot of EQ in here, carving out a lot of that low end, and probably quite a lot of the mids as well actually. Drum bus doing nothing. It's this which gives it a nice bit of movement with the frequency shifter kind of really targeting the frequencies on the bandpass mode. This band chaser preset is wicked. It's literally the second one once you click and load this plugin on. Just click the right arrow, it brings it up. I always change the shape to sine, and then play around with like the gain of like how much, and just kind of get them sort of a little bit closer together, because I think they're quite far apart originally. And then just get this kind of movement, and it just gives it a nice sort of nice bit of movement essentially. So if we listen now without that, still sounds nice, but it's just it's quite static, I suppose. Again, trusty CLA, less reverb, but it's probably because Juno's got some reverb built into it. 8th delay and a lot of width. I always push my pads quite wide. Done this in a strange order, but yeah, the kick starts in the middle. It's got a little bit softer because obviously the kick's not really playing there, so it doesn't need to be super pumping. But I still don't mind that pump even when the kick ain't playing. I've got this smudge and build, whatever this is doing. Let's have a listen. Just giving it loads of characters, to be fair, getting it kind of nice and crispy in that high end as well. And then just taking, I've probably done it too much, which is why I'm carving it out again with the EQ. If we bypass that, yeah, maybe a little bit too screechy, but yeah, other than that, that's it. And then we just filter it back out. Cool. M1 channel, obviously not doing anything. Then we've got the main kind of hook that comes in. I kind of keep it sparingly, actually. You only hear it halfway through each main section. But it's just a one shot from a many sample pack, which is, I think, it's just on Sample Market. But it's, kind of like a housey, old school stab. The melody, pretty similar to, actually, I think it more or less mirrors the bass line, but I simplify it in that last bar. So when I'm building hooks, bass lines, anything like that has this sort of type of melody, I tend to build them in this way. Sometimes they're 8 bars long, but essentially I'll have like something really simple that's 1 bar long, repeat that a few times, and have variation in that final bar, and just work it in blocks of 8 or 4 or something like that. And just, it keeps it driving for the club, but doesn't have it super repetitive, breaks it up a little bit, so that can be handy. I just remembered I didn't actually go through the chords of the pad. So it's basically a G minor start. I always use this formula. Where are we? Oh no, I'm in the wrong channel, that's right. And if I go here. So essentially what I've got here is a G minor 7th and 9th. If I show you why. So we've got G down here, which I'm not actually using. I kind of muted it, or deleted it, sorry. But it's a G minor voicing, but just with a slightly different, just pitched down the extensions. So a G minor 7th and 9th would be these voicings. Say we actually started up here, it makes a bit more sense. Where are we? So that's a G minor 7th and 9th, but I've just taken these 2 extensions and pitched them down, so they're down here, but then just deleted the actual bass note, which is G. So it's just, and then what is this chord? I have no idea what I've done here. It's maybe a G minor sus2 or something. So then a G major 9th. Just that extension would normally be up here, but I've just pitched it down again. And that's it, basically. Just kind of playing around with some chords. Sound, we've gone through that pack, sample pack that I've used, which is just from Sample Market. But the synth itself, melody as well, processing pretty simple. Just carved out a bit of the low end, and then here's the kind of settings I use of the CLA. Basically, you'd probably notice use the CLA on most, if not every single synth. Use it on vocals, obviously, and I tend to use it on some drum layers as well, like hi-hats and claps. But that's pretty much that. Then we've got this Digitise, which I'm pretty sure I got from one of these weird well, not weird, but these like AI websites that can just generate text to voice, so you can hear it's quite like computerized, and I'll just use it like that throughout the track. Was a little bit of a pain in the ass to mix. Probably could have found a better sample, but using CLA, no reverb on this one, but then I've got the Abbey Road saturator just to give it some oomph. Then probably this chamber, so this is, this is just giving us a vinyl feel, just maybe keep it quite lo-fi. Then we've got a lot of EQ in. Multi-pass again, giving it some, a lot more character. I mean, what is that? It's a bit shift, so if we turn that on. So it's just, making it sound a little bit brighter in that high end. And a delay. It's quite soft, but maybe I might automate that in. It looks like it. So. Quite subtle, you can't really hear it. I like doing that trick, just, what do you call it? Sort of automating, so I can get my words out then, automating the delay time up or down on the timeless or any plugin actually, but do it in seconds instead of like flipping to quarter note then eighth note. Do it in milliseconds, and it kind of gives you like this repitch sound, which can be great for anything really. So give it a try. Always have like fairly high feedback when you do that as well, because you won't hear the repitch as well. But then obviously again sidechain, another EQ for some reason, just taking out any corrective or any resonant frequencies that we've probably created with adding plugins to it. And then another EQ with taking some high end out and some limiter, which probably isn't doing much. Not entirely sure why that's in there. Maybe there's spikes in the thing. I probably could have put a compressor on it instead, actually, to get the quiet bits high and the loud bits quieter, to make it more balanced. But for whatever reason, I've just, because I'm lazy, probably just used a limiter just to stop anything too loud going higher than it should do. Other than that, it's then just sort of effect sounds really. What's this? Just a effect. Sounds cool. Probably got a crash, I would have thought, in there. What's this? Is this even doing anything? Nice little crash. Then 2 layers of snares with that roll. Actually, no, I think I might have just went with the 808 sound. Just at the very end of each breakdown. Then another, probably some sort of impact sound. Introduces the transition into the breakdown, and then a kind of sweepy sound again. Obviously I was loving the old many sample pack, quite a few samples in here from there. In my breakdowns, I like to, sometimes I use a lot more than this, but when you've got kind of things like this main hook happening, there's not crazy amounts of space. It's not always needed, especially with the pad and everything like that. But I like to use these sorts of sounds in my breaks, especially the more stripped back tracks, just to fill the track up, because obviously in our breakdown we're losing lots of energy in the low end and the bass and things like that. So just these nice wishy-washy sounds that can kind of just fill the track, keep the ear kind of intrigued and ticking over, kind of ear candy. It could be anything, just laser effects, sirens, spoken words, white noise, playing around with white noise, resampling it, adding loads of effects to it, seeing what happens, just to give your ear something to kind of latch onto while the break builds and the tension starts to build again. And that's pretty much the reason I do it. But other than that, that is essentially it. That is the whole track in a nutshell. So yeah, nice one. Any other questions? Give me a shout and I'll get back to you ASAP.